Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/IDontWorkHereLady, where people are still mistaking regular Joe Schmo customers as employees. And in today's episode, oh boy, guys, Karens are at it again, attacking and harassing customers because that's all they know how to do. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. Don't shake your heads too hard, and remember, you can always send your stories to this email right here. Let's dive in. So in the times before a personal issue happened in November, I, a 17-year-old female, worked at a local hobby store. I stocked shelves, cleaned up after people, and I would also cashier a few nights a week. I was making big money to afford my daily girly needs. I quit working there because of the personal issue. So this past Monday, I went in there to get some art supplies for a project that my therapist recommended, and also to see how I feel about going back out into the world. I was dressed in a large black baggy hoodie and baggy sweatpants, nothing like an employee. I also had my earbuds in, but they weren't on. They just dull the noise but don't completely make it silent. I then hear the click 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 of someone wearing heels, a distinctive sound. The sound suddenly stopped and I could see a shadow darken on me as I looked at drawing pads. My heart started speeding up and I was beginning to sweat. Then she said those exact words. The woman said, "Excuse me." Now it wasn't dripping with contempt yet. I say back, "Yes." To which the Karen responds, "Where are those little painting cups to paint the little porcelain Christmas villages?" Now I will give her this. The woman did ask nicely. I tell her I don't know, and that's when she gets mad and she says, "You do know where they are, so where are they?" Hearing her raise her voice, I step back and begin to shake and I say, I don't know, I don't work here." And that's when she begins screaming in my face saying, "Yes you do. You helped me find stuff last Halloween. Quit lying and tell me where the paints are." At this point, I begin to have a panic attack. It's getting hard for me to breathe, and I say, it's been like 6 months since I worked here, and the store's been rearranged." To which the Karen says, "Oh my god. You kids are so lazy. You think that because there's a worker shortage, that you can just do whatever you want and not get fired for mouthing off to customers. Well, I'll show you how effing wrong you are when I get your manager and have you fired." At this point, I dropped the supplies I was holding and turned to leave. I was having a full-blown panic attack. I'm not crying. I just want to be away from this crazy lady. The woman then reaches out and grabs me, and as I'm spun to face her again, she shoves her finger into my face, and the screeching is piercing, even with the headphones on, and that's when things went black. Yep, I blacked out. When I came back to reality, I was being checked on by paramedics. A few police officers were standing around with the lady and she was in handcuffs and she kept repeating, "I didn't do anything to her. She's just crazy. I can't believe this place hires crazy bitches." I ended up going to the hospital and the lady's being charged with assault. I did read the statement from the police reports, and from what former coworkers told me, when she grabbed me, I just fell to the ground going into the fetal position, repeatedly whimpering that I don't work here. Some customers saw what was going on and they got the manager, and someone else called 911. The whole time, the lady just stood there repeating, "I didn't touch her." So after a night in the hospital and a visit with my therapist, I'm home and waiting for a delivery from Amazon with the supplies I went to get. I'm glad the world is homebound friendly these days. Guys, I feel so bad for OP in this situation. Like, just when they felt that they recovered enough to go back out into the world, this happened. Like, this is why people need to know not to grab others, because you never know what kind of personal issue someone has or how they'll react. And guys, I find it so funny how the Karen kept repeating, "I didn't touch her," and then called OP a crazy bitch when she literally forcefully grabbed OP, shoved a finger in her face, causing OP to black out. I think you're the crazy one in this one, Karen. Okay, so this story takes place around the end of 2020. I was seeing my partner off at the railway station and I was waiting for a ride home when this happened. Now, I don't entirely understand why this guy thought I was staff. Now yes, I was wearing a lanyard, but a quick look at it, even from a distance, it should have made it blatantly obvious that I was just a member of the public. I was at the railway station entrance, just waiting to be picked up. I looked nothing like an employee. I'm wearing a purple sweater, a purple backpack, and I was carrying shopping bags. I also had a green sunflower lanyard that here in the UK at least, people with invisible disabilities wear to alert staff that we're disabled. In my case, it's autism. It's not really relevant to the story though. Anyways, I was just browsing my phone when a rather irritated guy was walking around, and then he spots me, stomps over, and says to me, "Hey, "Do you work here?" I say to him, "Oh, no, sorry, I don't." He then points to security in the distance and he says, "Do they work here?" I tell him, I'm actually not sure." The guy then screams at me saying, "I need to get a ticket." I tell him, "Oh, there's a ticket machine right over there. You can use that to buy a ticket." The guy says to me, "I tried that, but it's not working. Help me." I tell him I can't, and I kind of start glancing back at my phone in hopes that it'll get him to go somewhere else. The guy did, and I thought this was over. About 30 seconds later, I see the jerk pointing his phone right at me and bizarrely starts recording my disability lanyard. He then screams at me saying, "I'm recording this." I say to him, "What?" He repeats himself and says, "I'm recording this. You can't be bothered to help me get a ticket, so I'm gonna send this video to your manager." I tell him, "I just said I don't work here." The guy then screams to security saying, "Where can I get a ticket? That machine's broken." The security ended up saying something, but I couldn't really process what they said, as I was too dumbfounded processing what was going on. I assumed they said they couldn't help him, and that's when he says, "You guys can't be bothered. All of you are effing useless." Again, I repeat, "I can't help you, I don't work here." And the jerk starts walking towards the ticket area and starts rambling about not being able to get a ticket. Now, I don't know what happened to him, but he did attract a crowd, and then security had to stop him from whatever he was doing. The guy didn't even know he can buy a ticket from his phone. With that said, I wish he uploaded the video. I would have loved to have a link to that altercation. Guys, I have just read so many of these stories, and it always baffles me that people think that because you have a lanyard on, it must mean that you're an employee. And guys, excuse my complete ignorance about this, but I learned something new today. I had no idea that the sunflower lanyard was created to act as a discreet sign that the wearer has a hidden disability. And for all who don't know what they look like, or didn't know like myself, I'll post a picture right here so more people are aware. This happened in June 2020 when I was job hunting. My old company, let's call them Company A, laid me off due to the pandemic. They gave me a generous 2 months notice, so the end of August was my last day. I applied for various companies. I even applied for a re-education program, which I took in the end. However, during the 2 months, I also applied for Company B. Their job offer was amazing at first. 40 hours a week, overtime account, 24 days of paid vacation a year, and I got called in for an interview. So a little bit about me is I tend to arrive early for work, interviews, and appointments. That's for me to take a breath, drink a coffee, and prepare for what's coming. The interview was at 8 a.m. I got there around 7:30. I parked in the employee parking lot. I was told it would be fine. Little did I know it would cause an issue. So that issue started when a guy in a suit and tie, I guess the manager, storms up to the parking lot looking furious, and the following conversation ensues. The guy marches up to me and screams, "Where the F have you been? You're supposed to be here by 7 o'clock. I start trying to explain, I was told, and the guy cuts me off and starts mocking me saying, but I was told, no, you were told to be here by 7 o'clock. I was totally confused by this point, and I say to him, the email stated 8 a.m. But no, the guy continues screaming at me saying, "Are you stupid? We start at 7 o'clock. It's your first day and you're late already? Get out of here. You're fired." At this point, I do realize what's happening, and I say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. You must be To which he interrupts and says, "I said, get out." I tell him, "I don't work for you guys." To which he says, "Obviously, since I just fired you." And I tell him, "No, I've actually never worked for you in the first place." And the guy says, "Of course. Today was supposed to be your first day. Wow, you're dumb." So yeah, I had enough of him. I was about to get back in my car when another guy and a woman comes out of the office building to see what the fuzz was about. It turns out that he's the CEO and she's the recruiter. The CEO asked me, "What the heck is going on out here?" The manager says, "This lazy bum comes in on his first day 30 minutes late." The CEO looks at me, looks at the guy, and then back at me and says, "This is unacceptable. What's your name?" I tell him my name, and that's when the recruiter says, "Oh, you are early." Hearing that, the idiot looks at me and says, "Early? He's late. He's fired." The recruiter says, "No, he's not. He's actually here for a job interview. You know that vacant position on your team? He's not even an employee." The guy says, "Why does he park here then?" Recruiter tells him, "Because I told him to. His appointment's at 8 o'clock, but we can start now." I then say out loud, "With all due respect, I politely decline to work here." Hearing that, the CEO and the recruiter are baffled. And I say, yeah, I'm not interested in working for someone who speaks to his employees in this manner. Also, I don't want to work for someone who can't tell who's working for him. The woman says, you know what, I promise we'll deal with this. Maybe we can reschedule your interview for another day. I tell her I'll keep in touch with you about that. So a few days later, I sign a contract at the transport company for a re-education program to become a train operator. I called the recruiter as promised, and I told her that another interview wasn't necessary. I then asked her to please remove me from the list of candidates. She did, and she told me I made a good choice as her father used to work for this transport company. She also told me what happened to the guy. Apparently he got fired 2 days after he blew up at me. They did an internal investigation and found out about a lot of misconduct and abuse towards his employees. Karma wins. What a satisfying ending to that post, guys. And seriously, I hate when managers or people in power treat people who work for them like absolute garbage. Like, employee or not, there's never ever a good reason to scream at another person like that and just blow up at them. And I'm glad the guy was fired, and I hope he never ever lands a job managing people again. So this happened 2 days ago. I work for one of many self-employable delivery apps that deliver food for various restaurants. On this particular day, I had gotten assigned 2 orders that were relatively close to each other. So I picked up the first order and got the second one too. The first order, of course, gets dropped off first. It took me about 10 minutes to get to the first address and drop off the order. Except I could not drop it off immediately, since I had to hand it to the customer. This took an additional 5 minutes, since it took them forever to answer the door. Once it was completed, I was on the way to the next address. So I get to the next house to drop off this order, and this one also requests that I hand it directly to the customer. So I go knock on the door, and the following encounter happens. A lady answers the door. She's about 5'8", blonde, and kind of youngish looking. She has this look on her face like I was someone who just kicked a puppy or something. She then crosses her arms and says, "Wow, it took you long enough. We were tracking you and we saw you go all over the place except here to drop the food off. Care to explain?" Now I was caught off guard and kind of shocked, but using my best customer service voice, I replied, "Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. I was assigned 2 orders and I was instructed to go to the first order first because it was closer, I assume. If there's an issue, you can contact support and they can try to work this out with you." Now the woman wasn't happy with this. She then tells me that she wants her order for free, or she'll call the restaurant and have me fired. She's been very rude to this point, and I really don't want to help her any further, so I say, "Ma'am, I don't work for the restaurant. I'm an independent contractor. I'm so sorry, but there's nothing I can do." After my statement, she becomes irate. She starts to clap her hands, and she told me, "Okay, you wait right there. I got something for you." Now at this point, I decide it's time to leave. And before I could completely get off the porch, her husband or something comes out screaming at me. The guy's massive, and he starts to scream at me to hold it right there. He then starts advancing towards me, and he says, "You're gonna get us our effing refund, or else." I then replied with the same statement I told the lady, but in a softer tone, to attempt to de-escalate the situation. As I'm in mid-sentence, the guy pushed me back hard. As soon as he pushed me, my instincts kicked in. As I regained my footing, I squared my stance and put my hands up to my face just in case he tried to swing at me. I start to yell back at the guy and told him not to get closer or put his hands on me. That was my warning. But the guy then throws a wild punch that I managed to dodge. I then fought back and hit him twice, and that's when he gets up, red in the face, and he screams, "F you," and attempted to charge me. He throws another wild punch and another, and I attempt to wrestle him down. The guy kept trying to punch me and even elbowed me in the face before I was able to trip him and take him down. I then did my best to pin him as he starts to punch, scratch, and bite me. In response, I gave him a good couple of hammer fists to get him to cover up, and once he did, I get higher on his chest to pin his arms to his head. We remained there until the cops came. Once they arrived, they ordered me off of him and they put me in handcuffs. I was put into a squad car until a cop came to get my statement and asked me what happened. I explained how they wanted a refund and I couldn't give it to them since I'm just a delivery driver. The cop told me the wife called and said I threatened her and was assaulting her husband on their front lawn. He then asked me if I had any way to prove my side. Now, lucky for me, I have a dash cam in my car. It records movements and voice when parked and senses motion. The dash cam caught some of the action from the front door on video, and the rest was caught on audio of him demanding a refund, threatening me telling him to back off, and some audio of the struggle. Apparently, a neighbor across the street also had a Ring camera, and it captured the incident with video and some audio. The cops then let me go. I did end up pressing charges on him and was told by the cops that they would call me if they had any more questions. Guys, some people are just too freaking insane. And honestly, I don't think I could ever do food delivery because I've heard of crazy stories like this happening many times. So I had a coworker who used to deliver pizzas late at night, and a few times he told me he was called to deliver pizzas to like sketch houses that were essentially abandoned properties, where people would just come out and rob him at like 2 o'clock in the morning. And guys, the craziest part is, he would tell me he put up a fight, like against 2 or 3 guys who would try to steal the pizza and money from him. Just like how OP fought this dude when maybe he should have just gotten into his car and drove away. So here's a little information heading into this. I work in the auto industry, the dealership parts department to be exact. This means that I have a uniform, which is slacks, shoes, and a polo shirt and jacket in the automaker colors, with their name embroidered on the left chest. So at the time of this incident, I worked for an auto manufacturer whose logo is a big T in an oval. This meant that my polo shirt was black with red sides, with a huge red T logo, along with the dealer's name on it. So here we go. Back in March, I had just gotten off my late shift, which ends at 7 o'clock. On the way home, I stopped at Walmart to get some groceries for dinner, along with flowers for Dad and stuff to make a cake for Mom's birthday. When I go shopping, I usually put in my Bluetooth earbuds as I don't want to talk to people, and it also helps deter those annoying cable internet power salespeople that roam the aisles of the store trying to sell you crap. My headphones at the time were a pair of Adidas Adistar by Monster. They were Bluetooth with a cord between the two and a little inline controller on the right side. I'm in the store and it's about 7:30 and I've got my earbuds in. I'm in the baking aisle looking for caster sugar, and I notice someone off to my right. Now, I don't think anything of it, as it is a steady evening for them. This location is always busy. I finally settle on some sugar and go down to reach for it when I feel a sharp pain in my ears, followed by someone yelling at me. I then turn and yell, "What the F, lady?" And I'm face to face with a woman who's maybe 40 years old, about my height, and she's dressed quite smartly. High-heel boots, leggings, and an expensive-looking coat. The woman is yelling at me and holding my headphones in her hands. The woman decided to grab the controller and yank out my headphones as I couldn't hear her talking to me. She then starts telling me off, that it's very unprofessional for me to be wearing headphones while working, how dare I talk to her like that, and that she's been trying to get my attention as she needs me to fetch her something. I then snap back and say I don't work here, and demand my earbuds back. She then responds that I obviously do work here from how I'm dressed, and I'm just lazy. She then looks at my headphones in her hands with a smirk and says that I won't be needing these at work. She then proceeds to throw them on the ground. Now at that, I'm furious, and I start shouting at her what the F makes her think I work here, and proceed to point at the logo on my shirt and call her a moron. At this point, a crowd has gathered to see what the commotion is. I guess an employee had heard something and called the manager or security, as someone in a white business shirt with a company lanyard around their neck comes down the aisle to break us up and see what's happening. The Karen immediately starts going off at him about how lazy and unprofessional his employees are, and how she wants to talk to corporate. He then turns to me and starts to ask why I was ignoring her and wouldn't help her when he notices my shirt. He looks at me and says, "Ugh, you don't work here, do you?" I tell him, no, I actually work at this dealership up the road. I'm just here to pick up a few things, and this psycho attacked me. He then apologizes and asked if she hurt me, and I responded just my ears when she yanked the earbuds out. The woman starts screaming that I'm lying, that I'm a piece of crap, and I need to be fired. He then turns to her, picks my headphones up, and tells her that he doesn't approve of violence in the store, and the authorities are on their way. The police station is about 1.5 miles from the store. He then asked me to check my headphones to see if they work, and shocker, they don't. When she yanked the controller, it must have damaged the wires, as the right side cuts in and out. We've now been escorted to the front of the store by customer service. And sure enough, 2 officers are standing by the counter. They took statements from both of us, and she was flailing her arms as she gave hers. One of the officers then went with the store manager to review the cameras. Now, the entire time we were waiting with the officer, she keeps telling me how I'm gonna get in so much trouble when she's proven right and innocent, and that she hopes they lead me off in handcuffs. The officer with us just tells her to stay quiet until they were done. The manager and officer come back a few minutes later, and the officer asks me, "Would you like to press charges?" And when the woman hears him saying this to me, she starts screaming, "Yes, officer. Please, officer. I don't want someone like this out in public." I say yes I would, as my ears still hurt and she broke my earbuds. The woman is spluttering and coughing, whining that she's the victim. They then ask me if I can verify the amount the headphones cost when I bought them, as she'll be required to reimburse me. They then escort her out of the store. But it doesn't end there though. The woman calls the dealership that I worked at to complain about me and the trouble I caused her. And surprise, surprise, the woman wants me fired. They did call me into the owner's office to tell me that I caused a lot of drama over nothing, and it makes the dealership look bad and basically to not do it again. I wasn't fired though. I quit about 5 months later, and I've since changed dealerships to the big blue oval. I find it funny how the woman figures out where OP worked from his shirt, but at the time, she assumed he was a frickin' employee. And guys, a lot of people are saying that OP should have looked at suing the woman for what she did. This person says, "Dude, seriously, if this happened in the last year, you should be talking to a lawyer. You were assaulted and then the perpetrator tried to get you fired. You have police officers who witnessed the tape, and she presumably has some kind of criminal record over this incident. You've got pain and suffering as a direct result of her actions." So yeah, let me know how many of you would be looking to sue the Karen. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /IDontWorkHereLady. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up, and if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, I'll link it right here. A Karen attacks OP's family for eating meat in a barbecue restaurant because she's a freaking vegetarian, guys. If you haven't listened to it, go check it out, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.